Yo, everybody, it's Dave Wyndorf from Monster Magnet, and you're listening to The Rock Show with Gully and Joe.
You're listening to The Rock Show with Gully and Joe, and I'm really happy to have Dave Wyndorf of Monster Magnet with me. How are you today, Dave?
Very good, Alan. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Thanks for coming on. So, first of all, what is the band up to at the moment?
Boy, it's like, what am I not up to? It's been like crazy 3 years. It's music. At the end, probably by the beginning of 2015, we'll have 3 records out in 3 years. So it's a lot of studio, and in between that, touring. So it's like, you know, my brain gets sits in like 2 places primarily. One's in the studio for hours and hours, and the other's like on a tour bus for hours and hours. It's quite an existence.
So you're touring this year in Europe. What can the fans expect?
This time it's going to be heavy on the psychedelic, that's for sure. On the psychedelic rock side of things. A kind of an overview of the Monster Magnet repertoire, as they say. They would call it repertoire. A little bit heavy on the latest record, The Last Patrol.
So there's something about European fans that keeps bringing you back. What do you think it is?
I got our start there. In a weird kind of way. I'm from New Jersey, but the first record deal I did was with an indie from Germany. So we started traveling over there pretty early on. And we did get a lot of success in the States, but it didn't last as the way it did with us in Europe. There's a bigger appetite for psychedelic music and, let's say, different types of music from different ages over there. It lasts. Here in America, it seems to be the masses what's kind of drive everything over here. I always want the next big thing, whether it's good or not. The new is the thing. When in Europe and in the UK, there's a special attention paid to the heritage music, which I would call hard rock and psychedelic as well. They don't give up as easy waiting for the next big thing, and that suits me just fine.
So what made you take a second look at Last Patrol?
It's something I wanted to do. I usually want to do that with all the records. Is do little follow-ups in my head on what could have been, and what it kind of helps me. I have fun with it. What if I did this? What if I did that? Stuff I didn't get a time to while during the production of the album get to. I didn't think it was important for the record at that time, but it was important for me to discover what this thing would sound like if I added this or added that. It's really fun to do. The only difference this time is that I actually did it. Instead of just messing around, I actually did the whole record, and then was like, why not just release it? Music is interesting. Music has a life of its own. All you have to do is add a couple different chords to it, a minor note here, a different instrument there, and it can take on while being the same song, take on a different flavor. Now, I thought the material on Last Patrol was good enough to actually merit the reimagining. And like I said, it's an experiment for me, and it was happy. I loved it.
Really dig Last Patrol. I found the re-envisaging of it slightly darker. Is that something that you aim for?
Yeah, I think so, because you know what happens to it. I mean, it's like when you start putting keyboards with minor notes in it, the minors start making everything sound darker. And not only that, but the way that I produced this, I mean, most of it's re-recorded except for the drums. The drums are taken from the original session. Most everything else is recorded in a rather late 60s fashion, mid to late 60s fashion, rather than the early 70s fashion that I did the regular Last Patrol with. And everything gets a little, there's more room, there's more space in between in the instruments, and it just started to turn into a darker thing. I noticed that too. I was like, wow, that sounds like a real bummer. And everything's like, but hey, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes.
The album does have a more analog sound to it, and you get a lot of modern bands nowadays. It sounds more digital and cut and paste.
Yeah, I mean, I just go for the sound that I think suits the material. You know, if I wrote some songs that sounded like, wow, you know what that needs? That seems a modern plug-in, you know, guitar amp plug-in sound, which will never happen, by the way. Never going to happen to me. I would use it gladly, but there's a sweet spot in guitar sounds that happened somewhere between the mid-60s and I think mid-70s. A way of recording, the kind of amps they used, they really got it, you know, and It's not that the stuff that came after that is bad, because it's progress, but to me, that was probably the best stuff ever, best guitar sounds I ever heard. So, and I usually lead with my heart on these things, so I keep going for that.
Although technically guitarists have got better, the sound I don't think is necessarily improved. I love the 70s sound myself, like the Sabbath, the Judas Priest. I really like that gritty sound, which you don't get that much nowadays. Totally,
and you would think that more people would notice that, more players and stuff. But I think, after there was a couple of big switches in hard rock. When Metallica came out, they pretty much, them and a couple other bands, invented a whole new sound, which was like a lot of double kick and really speedy kick sounds. And this is me just being a music mutant, but to hear those double kicks, which was a big part of the sound, they had to thin out their guitars. And that became a sound too, and all the kids liked it. And it's legitimately cool sound. But, forever? No. It's like, a couple bands. I agree with you, man. Another thing is those old tones are hard to get. You got to work to get those tones. You don't just, buy an amp.
Well, I'm a bass player, and I noticed as it moved on towards the 80s that the bass disappeared, the guitars turned tinny, and the drums turned into...
Exactly, and the bass, all that glorious era of fantastically decorative bass parts, not only a bass laying down the rhythm, but actually filling in, it was all gone. The bass became just another thrashing guitar. Part of the drums, yeah, exactly. And man, that was cool for about 2 years, I swear to God. And then I was like, I'm done. There's nowhere for it to go. I really dig the old stuff. I love the, if we could go crazy on bass, but man, back in the early 70s, bass was king. Listen to those guys, what they play, and the sound. They took up all this sonics on the record too. Like, took up a lot of space. And I always tell my bass players, I'm like, look, at this part of the song, the bass tells the story. It's like boom, 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 like go up, go down, octaves. Awesome.
Yeah, it became part of the drums. I feel it just kind of got lost.
Yeah, well, to me, it flatlines my imagination. It's like they just cut out a whole dimension of music, of an instrument. They just, now the bass, like you say, it's part of the drums, so now it's really just added low end or some sort of tone. So there's another dimension of the music. The bass could have done an octave, could have done a run there. It would have been another element of the song. And now it's taken out. So it leaves less to listen to. And I don't get it, I guess, people want to, they're into, metal turned from a thing of when it was hard rock and psychedelic rock and Black Sabbath days. Then it was power, but it was more, may I say, like a majestic kind of, like this storytelling power. Like, it was for mood. The mood was the big thing. If it was heavy, it was scary, it was the mood that they wanted to make. And that kind of turned into just power for power's sake. And that's when metal started moving out of, hard rock started moving out of being music for everyone to just music for dudes. You know what I mean? It's like a big sausage fest out there. Like, you got to be heavier, and it's like, dude, I don't want to be, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You look like Cookie Monster up there. You look like an idiot.
Yeah, I feel as well is that a lot of new music, you don't actually hear the bass. It's like they've just thought of it as a second thought. Oh, we best put bass on it. Kind of loses perspective with some of the new music. After less bass for me, it's going to make me unhappy because I'm a player as well.
Yeah, it's straight ahead, violent, a kick in the nuts, the vulgar display of power, which is, like I say, it works live sometimes, and I've seen, bands like really use it well, but it's never been my thing. I couldn't understand, like, why would you leave out all that other cool stuff just so you could get your really super fast kick drum to be heard? It's just like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, to do that all the time, so. Screw it. I don't pay attention to that stuff anyway. I just do what I do anyway.
If you could pick a couple of tracks that best show what the band is all about, what would they be?
Spine of God from the first record, like way long time ago, that kind of sets the pace for Creepy Monster Magnet. And then off the new one, Last Patrol, I think a really good example of what we like to do, which is kind of infuse kind of surf garage rock into a Hawkwind kind of thing. Also, like utilizing all that great Lemmy, Dave Anderson bass stuff that made Hawkwind and Hawkwind such a great band. Its bass is always moving. You know, it's not that it's not rocking; it's hitting where it should be, but it's using the space to fill in and drive it. Much like, you know, very much like drums, except not quite as fast.
The Rock Show.
Monster Magnet have been making music for over 25 years. What do you feel is your biggest achievements as a band?
Surviving, I think. I never thought this thing would last more than 3 weeks, let alone you know what I mean? I'm like, it's a jungle out there, Alan. It's a jungle. When I started, I was like, well, this whole thing is all based on psychedelic rock and Stooges, Black Sabbath, Hawkwind, and a bunch of others from the time. It was a complete labor of love, like me basically just indulging my own fantasies for fun. It wasn't designed to be, there wasn't a grand plan like, yes, and now Monster Magnet will take over. I always thought it would be a local thing. So the fact that it got as far as it did for as long as it did, that's a main achievement. That's the thing I'm proudest of, that I could do pretty much what I wanted to do. Make mistakes, recover, do more cool stuff, travel around the world for like 20 years. I mean, it's amazing. Believe me, man, if I wasn't in this band, I'd be down working at the record shop or something. Forget it.
Must be nice to have that creative freedom to a certain extent, because a lot of bands they stick to a formula and that's it. So that must be really refreshing for you. Yeah,
it very, very, very much is, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why we stayed around long enough. We didn't actually ever aim to get the big Hollywood blockbuster. Because I mean, if you go for everything that your current day has to offer, say if you're a Limp Bizkit or something like that, and you define that moment, you go right for what the charts are doing, then you're going to be defined like that forever, for just that. And we get to, with a lot less record sales, by the way, but still, we get to eke in and out and kind of slither like a snake in and out of music every couple of years because we keep changing up the game slightly.
Onto yourself, if you could pick a few songs which influenced you, what would they be?
I would say Master of the Universe by Hawkwind. Awesome song. Yeah, it's just amazing, especially off the first one. I mean, I like the book, but I like it off In Search of Space, the Dave Anderson version. Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges, and Lord of This World by Black Sabbath.
I'm a really big Black Sabbath fan, so my favourite track is Superstar, only because it's just one of the weirder ones.
It's really weird. It's great. I love it.
Rock Show with Gully and Joe.
So
Milking the Stars of Reimagining The Last Patrol is out now, and the European tour starts February 2nd in Switzerland. Thank you very much, Dave, for your time.
Thank you very much, Alan.
The Rock Show with Gully and Joe.